Hello there, right here we have another video for Secrets of the Snapshot where we cover a whole bunch of crazy things you can do in the latest snapshot. We have a lot of interesting things to look at, including new uses for powder snow, strange properties of the goats, some weird things you can do with the new light block, and a bunch of other things. And at the very end we'll be looking at more Easter eggs that are inside of Minecraft's official April Fool's joke. If you enjoyed learning about cool things in Minecraft, hit the subscribe button where I go over thousands of different cool tricks and tips for your survival world. New powder snow changes mean that only mobs that are immune to the freeze damage will be able to spawn inside of it. So which mobs are immune? Well, snow golems are, polar bears are, and strays. You see polar bears are able to spawn in here, but also notice that there is no strays in here. This is because they need sky access, and when you stand inside of some powder snow, it actually decreases the light level from the sky by 1 degree, which is enough to prevent them from spawning. So since there's no level 15, there is no strays. So it's kind of peaceful, there's no hostile mobs at all. Also, snow golems don't naturally spawn in, so all we get is some polar bears here. This is in the taiga biome. We also prevented rabbits from spawning in. So we're making a new polar bear farm using these mechanics. Now one interesting thing is that with the powder snow 1 layer above, you think that rabbits would spawn down here, but actually no other mobs will spawn even if they are short ones, unless they're immune to the powder snow. The fox are a little bit different, so we actually get foxes to spawn in here. So I might update my fox farm as well. Now besides making some mobs immune to the powder snow, they also made some take more damage when they're inside of it. This includes magma cubes, striders, and blaze. So now my magma cube farm that uses a spawner and has the powder snow here should be a lot more effective. You can see the guys drop down into it. They will quickly start to shake, and then once they shake, they're going to take damage. Here's a bigger guy, and this applies to all of them, and when they split, they do have to kind of become cold all over again. So notice he's shaking, then the new ones don't. And then after that 7 seconds, they will shake and die. So I wouldn't recommend this as a killing method over like wither roses, but it is a lot cheaper to obtain. And then we'll just have a hopper minecart, put all the loots into a chest. Now mobs that come from spawners will still spawn inside of it because the powder snow doesn't actually collide with them. So with my blaze spawner farm, we can actually now use the damaging system of it more effectively. See if we can drop this guy into it. And we got the same setup as before where we have powder snow and then cobweb to slow them down. You can see now they take damage only after 7 seconds. And they die extremely quickly. Now the mobs that take extra damage in the powder snow, like blaze, striders, and magma cubes, take the same amount of time to freeze as other mobs, but once they are frozen, then they take different amounts of damage. Where most mobs will take half a heart each 2 seconds, these guys will take 5 hearts each 2 seconds, so within 4 damaging cycles for these mobs, they will die. Also, powder snow doesn't protect mobs like snow golems from living in the nether dimension or a hot biome. I did update all my mob farms which use powder snow to implement these new changes, so look forward to those videos. Now with the leather boots on the player or leather horse armor on the horses, they won't take any freezing damage, and you can actually walk on top of the powder snow. And if you hold crouch, you can sink down into it. You can also jump to stay on top of it. But one strange thing that happens when you hop into an area with other mobs, they can push you and actually push you up a layer. So right there, the horse just pushed me up out of the powder snow. And you can still do this trick that I showed earlier with powder snow, which is you can like go inside of it and climb it, or if you're on the outside of it, you can hop up it like vertical steps. You can hop to each step and go upwards, or you can push shift to go down a step. Now horses have trouble actually jumping out of this, unlike the player, even though they're wearing leather armor. Unlike the player who has the leather boots and can walk over top of the snow, horses, when they wear their leather, they can't stand on top of the powder snow. They just fall right through it. At least they don't freeze. They also change it so if you're wearing leather boots and you fall in powder snow, you'll no longer take damage and you'll actually kind of slowly fall through it. Now mobs that are immune to falling into the powder snow can still end up taking damage within it like a fox. Also entities that aren't alive like minecarts and armor stands don't shake or freeze. Goats have a health of 10 just like other passive mobs, but their best ability is that they can fall a great distance and still survive. So we drop them 13 blocks, see they take no damage. Drop them 14 blocks, they just take a little bit of damage from there on. They also jump extremely high. And we can see this in their data information. Right here it says Minecraft long jump cooldown, so there's a cooldown before they can do one of those really big jumps again. About every 30 seconds they have a chance of jumping really high. So if you have a bunch of these guys in a pen, they will jump out. So it's pretty crazy. You can make them come to you using wheat, and you can also breed them. Plus you can make the babies grow up bigger by just spamming wheat. Becomes a big one. It seems like the baby goats actually have a collision so stuff can land on top of them. Notice how he's standing on top of a baby goat underneath, and then they shift around and he falls back down again. Oh, they're jumping out now. You can use buckets on them for buckets of milk, and you can also use leads on them and attach them to a fence. But they can jump right out of the fence even with the lead on. Goats also have a special property called is screaming goat. And Eli, the coder, looked this up for me, and he says there is a 2% chance that a goat will scream rather than making a normal noise. Here's what the normal goat scream ambient can sound like. And here's what the scream sounds like. Kind of funny. There's also them getting hurt. There's also them getting milked. Now there's other variations of the screaming for death, hurt, and milk. They don't seem to be any different than the normal ones. Currently the subtitles for the goats are a little bit messed up. If you look in the bottom right hand corner, it says Entity Goat Ambient as a subtitle. There's also currently a funny thing to do with the goats in the game, which is the way they walk is not how real goats walk. If you notice this cow, how its front left leg and its back right leg will actually move forward at the same time. But with the goat, it's actually left sides are both moving and the right sides are both moving at the same time. It's pretty funny to watch them walk. It's almost like there is two humans being the legs and they both take their right leg at the same time. So I made a bug report for this and I'll link it down below. Now to be fair, the way that goats and cows walk isn't really like either of them in the game. It's kind of between both of them. They don't move both their legs on one side at the same time. They don't actually move alternative legs. Just the alternative leg actually looks more natural. Now goats do spawn in the mountain biomes and they will spawn in the new mountains, but for some reason they are actually not immune to the powder snow. So they can get cold and they will actually die from it. Because of this reason, they don't spawn directly inside of it and will actually purposely avoid it. Currently you can't like shear the goats like you would a sheep. Now during my snapshot review, I didn't go into much detail about the new light block, but we did a lot of testing during my snapshot stream and there are some really weird things that this thing can do. First off, to get the actual block, you have to have opt to be able to do the give command, give the player, and then it's just called light. You do that. And if you hit enter, it will give you one of these items. It looks like a light bulb and it has a little 15 up in the top left. And then when you place it down, it's the actual block that occupies space that puts off light. So if we stand here, it's going to be a light level of 15. And if you move outward, it works just like other lights where it gets smaller in light level. And it's just like the barrier block. If you're not holding it in your hand, they will no longer show the particles, which is the main thing that lets you see it. Now the difference between the barrier block and the light block is that you can't walk through this, even though you can't really see it. You can walk through the light block, which is right here. Also the barrier block, you can see the outside edges of it, where the light one you cannot. But once you're holding the actual item, then you can see the edges, but you can still walk through it all the time. And by holding the light item in your hand and then right-clicking the block of light while aiming at it, you can change the light level. So now it's level 0. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And notice how the light spreads as you're doing that. So it's a really cool block that you can customize the light level for area. Let's say you want to get it slightly dim, you can just put it at a lower light level to make it kind of scary in a particular build while still being able to see. Now this is mostly for people doing creative builds, as this isn't for survival. You can also break the light block by holding the light item and then left clicking on it to remove it, and then the particles will eventually go away. Now you can't do any of this light changing without the item in your hand, so I can't right click it and I can't break it. The light is still there. Now the default one that they give you is always a light level 15, but you can actually get whatever level you want by first placing it on a block and then setting it to the light level you want, then holding control and doing your mouse middle button to pick block the exact light level you want. Now I have a different item in my hotbar. You can see it has an NBT tag, and with each light level it has a different image as well as number in the top left. So this is more of a dimmer looking light bulb with the number 3 in the top left. So if I place it down, it's going to be very dim. So you can easily place in the correct light level without having to adjust every single one, kind of like using a note block. And there's one for every single number, 0 through 15, so 16 of them, including 0, which looks like this light bulb here. It has no light inside of it whatsoever. They do look pretty cool inside of item frames. There's one of them, there's another one. And you can have a whole stack of these in your hand. And when you're in survival, you can actually still place them down if you do get them as a block. And you can also change the light levels. Now you can give yourself the specific block with a certain light by doing this command, which is word block state tag and then level and then 1. This will give you a block with a light level of 1, and you can change that to however you want. And the number at the very far end of the tag is how many you want. It looks pretty cool when you're holding this, and it also looks amazing when you put it on the player's head, which is something you can do with the command. So by using this command here, you can set different levels of light onto the player's head. So if you have like no brilliant ideas, then you have a blank light bulb. Then once you have an idea, you can make it do this, which is really cool. Now you can click onto other ones. If you shift click, you can place one on top of it or on the sides. Now it does have a lot of properties of air, but also has some very strange properties. So it is a block that you can kind of walk through and doesn't really interfere with entities. So you can place in like paintings or item frames inside of it. Let's try to put a shulker in there. And yeah, the shulker does not like it because it's not an actual air block. It'll teleport out of it. If you try to place any block in there, they'll just replace the light. So now it's no longer there. So you can destroy it in survival just by placing in different block. Also, by having a light level 0-1, it doesn't prevent light from going into that area. This area is still able to take on new light, like this torch over here makes a light level of 12, even though it says it's level 0. It also doesn't interfere with redstone by cutting it in any way, and most blocks can't really interfere with it. If you put a carpet here, you can actually place it on top of it because it is a block. You can make floating carpets, but if we go ahead and try this with like sand, let's put a block right there and put sand right above it. You can see the sand will fall through it like it's air and it will replace it, removing the block. Now typically it can't replace other blocks, but it can replace weak blocks like grass if you click directly on them. Kind of seems like another block that we have in the game, and this is the structure void block. Essentially, it's a block to occupy space when making structures, and these things are able to be destroyed in survival by punching them or by placing a block where they're at. But the light source, you can't really punch it, but you can place blocks there. It has some other pretty interesting features, which is it can hold back water. If I place some water in here, you can see it can make like what appears to be floating water. And you can use the light level 0-1 if you don't want to put off any light. It does remind you a lot of like block 36. Now one property which is different in block 36 is that you can't move it with pistons. So here I got a void block, and here we have a light block. If you try to power it, it breaks that one, but it can't break this one. And we do this command to get the block information. It says it's not a block entity, where most blocks that can't be moved are this. So let's try some TNT. We have the light block down there, and we'll drop it down into it and see if it blows up. And you can see it actually doesn't blow up the light. And because it can't blow up, anything that's inside of it that blows up gets dampened, so it doesn't destroy the blocks beside it. So if we put a wall of this in right here, we can prevent a blast from going over into the other side of it. So let's light this TNT, and it should blow up this side, but not this side. So pretty crazy how it protected these blocks over here. You can make kind of like an invisible wall to protect stuff. Though if people do know it's there, then they could destroy it, but it's kind of crazy. Some other interesting properties is that if you change the value of the light, it does create updates to an observer. Also, if you have a light block beside a piston and you quasi connectivity power it, meaning that this piston is currently butted, so if any updates are given to it, it's going to extend, and you break this block, it does actually update the piston. Now it doesn't get replaced by other means, like if you bone mill around it, it's not going to replace it with grass. And even though it does have properties like air block, when you convert stuff to moss blocks, anywhere where you have the light block, it's not going to convert it. Because both the barrier and the light block are particles, you can switch them out, and you can see you can have both particles in for a short period of time. It also does prevent plants from growing, so this could be used as alternative to making like Minecraft adventure maps. It also can be waterlogged. So if I place it in here, it was air for a while, but then these came in and put sources there. It's still there. Can't really see it as well, but underneath the water, you can see the particles. If you do turn your particles to minimal, you won't be able to see them anymore. And you can put down the waterlog variation by using set block light. And then you can come here and you can choose a level, let's say level 3. You can also choose waterlog being true. And then if you hit enter, you can get that type of block. Now you can pick block this one, but when you place it down, it's not going to have the water with it. And you can't use the debug stick on it because as soon as you hold that, you can no longer see the block and end up clicking on the stuff behind it. And you can't like hold it in your offhand or whatever and try to click on it. Now just like the trick I showed with the invisible lichen, where you can't light a nether portal, you can do the same thing with the light block. Also can't light this portal because it's in the way. It also doesn't affect stuff like beacons. And if you look at it with your F3, you can see in the right hand side, it will show the targeted block. And it says it's a light block and the light level is 0, and also tells if it's waterlogged or not. You can give this item to mobs for them to hold, and you can see it looks kind of strange as a fox is holding it. He holds the end of the light bulb outwards. Here's the light variation of it, really bright one. The starlight pixels inside of a light block kind of remind me of the new gold ore, but sort of have the same kind of star shapes. Cool trick you could do is use this command, but instead of putting in a number, put in a negative number, like -1, and you'll get the little twinkling lights that you see as a block. You place this down, it will put a normal level of 15, and if you put it on your head, it looks really cool as well. Now, something I'm really excited about is that they came out with these deep slate variations of the ores, but there's 3 different types that you can't find in survival. And the reason you normally can't find these is because where copper generates in the world is never low enough to run into a deep slate variation of it. Same for coal and emeralds. But that actually changed in this recent snapshot where they added these deep slate pockets above Y level 0. So they go up as high as level 16. And copper and coal can go down to Y level 0. So you can see how this coal intersects with this deep slate. That means there's a possibility of getting a variation like this. There's currently a bug in this version where they don't actually occur. You can see like this one was completely encased in a big glob of deep slate that was here. And when I removed it, you can see the entire thing is the old variation. So I made a bug report, which I'll link down below, because now there's no reason not to have this variation. And here's a good example of how the iron looks, right? When it intersects it, this is a pocket and it just changes it over. And you can see when I cut away all the deep slate, what it looks like. And here are some diamonds that convert over to deep slate. So yeah, there's no reason for us to not get these new blocks, which are going to be quite rare compared to the normal variations as well as other ore types, because you would have to find them inside of these blobs. Now when it comes to the emerald ore, they only go as low as Y level 32, meaning they won't have that chance of having a deep slate variation of those. Unless they change these pockets and make them go higher. I think it's still pretty cool that we're getting almost all the variations. Maybe somehow they can find a way to add emeralds in down lower, even if they are extremely rare. Now Eli looked into how the game decides where to put in deep slate currently, to figure out what was the problem with the copper. And he says currently it only checks down to Y level 0 when putting in normal variations of the ores. And it only checks up to -8 when putting in the deep slate variations. But if it's between 0 and -8, then it has a chance of being either. So the flaw is that it doesn't go up and check up to Y level 16 now. Now axolotls and glow squid can be found with natural spawns now in 1.17. They are part of the water creature mob cap, which means only 5 typically spawn in at once. This also means that they will despawn if the player is greater than 128 blocks. So if you don't want them to despawn, you can put them like inside of boats or minecarts or name tag them. A few of you guys mentioned that the end dimension was pretty messed up, and yeah, look how massive this island is. It's like they took the overworld generation and they applied it to the end dimension. The towers are way down here, and they're completely encased in endstone, and you can see the bottom of the world there, and the top is way up here. This is where the exit portal is at Y level around 200. And the island is just massive. I mean, look how big it is. It's not like no half sphere at all. And the outer islands are the exact same way. Look how crazy these are. I mean, this would be kind of cool to actually navigate these. Not that there was much to do at the lower pieces of them, as all the chorus stuff is at the very top. And there's even end cities. And notice that the end cities actually get cut off because they reach the world build limit. If we just do F3 plus G, you can see this is the highest they can go, which is 256, because end dimension nether still have shorter world limits than the overworld does. But it all got cut off, including the end ship, just whacked her. They also changed how far you can teleport yourself upwards. If I try to go up to 20 million blocks, it doesn't work. But if I go to 19,999,999.9, it does work. Once you get this high, you can actually continue to fly upwards if you want to go higher. There's also some more Easter eggs if you download the screensavers. If you right click it and you go to configure, this pop-up comes and also this dialog box. And it has some kind of funny name for the title of it. This one's called Fortune Cookie Configure. And then it has some funny statement. This one says your lucky number is fish. There are a lot of different messages that can pop up when you do this. And Robert Skitch sent me all of them. There's some pretty funny ones like this one where it says config window. Listen, you have so many config windows to choose from. Why did you pick me? There's also this one, which is a reference to the 3D maze being disabled. And here we see a reference to the goat. Here's some more, including this reference to Minecraft. It says it removed dirt. Besides the other Easter eggs I talked about in the previous video, like this one and this one, when you inspect the glowing squid here, as a side note, it says glow squid goes whoosh, which is pretty funny. One of my Twitch subs, the Wolf Ian, noticed that if you go ahead and inspect this page and go to console, and then when you click on the run in browser, it puts up a splash text here in the console. This one said stateless. And if you do it again, you can get a different one. And Ian sent me all of them. There is quite a few of them. Some of the ones at the top are the new ones. And then if you go downwards, some of these are already on the Minecraft splash screen. And there's some references to screensavers, saving the world one screen at a time. A pretty cool Easter egg and a lot of variety. Now there is some Easter eggs in the actual screensavers themselves. You can see like the creeper face in it. And there's a lot of different block models here. You can also see some of the new blocks like 1.17. Can be a little dizzying to watch this. So I was watching the blocks bouncing around on the screen for a while. There's some pretty interesting textures. Like here is the beacon block. It's the top side of it. You also find all the different type of command blocks, respawn anchor, even lit variations of blocks. Here's the piston without its head. Right where the piston arm is, there's just a black hole. There's also item frame texture, even though that's not a block. Now when people watch these bounce around, one thing they like to do is see if it'll actually hit directly in the corner. In which case I'll bounce right back the opposite direction. And I did have that happen a couple times. Here you can see this block went this direction and then it bounced in this corner and went straight back on top of each other. And when it does this, it actually follows the same path it started with. So it'll make this exact same pattern as it made before, but just going in reverse. Here's another new block, 1.17. It's the deep slate copper variation. This one looks kind of strange, but it's actually a bottom of one of the workstations. Top of a TNT, Ender Dragon egg, bottom TNT, the glow item frame. This one's a strange one. It's actually a campfire. You can kind of see the wood and the fire here. The blackness is the coals. Definitely one of the stranger ones you can find. And here is the creeper face, which is not an actual block in the game, but is the Easter egg that they hid inside of here. This one confused us for a little while, but we eventually found out it is the bottom of a lectern. If you look down at it, you can kind of see this red piece near the foot. Also, all the leaves really kind of look strange compared to what I was used to in survival. Powered observer, a terracotta that has a natural creeper face inside of it. Another leaf block, 1.17 leaf. Here's another strange one. It's also a bottom of a workstation. This one confused us for quite a while, but we think it's the bottom of the brewing stand. This is what the brewing stand looks like. It kind of has that same kind of coloring in those circles that are kind of spaced out. Not sure why the rest of it's filled in. Let me know if you think this is what it is. More variation of leaves. Also, we see the top of the skulk sensor. This looks like a gateway portal or a new 1.17 block. The cool thing is pretty much every block or item could be shown during these screensavers. So it makes it very interesting to watch. And all these screensavers have reference to old screensavers in the past. Let me know in the comments if there's any other cool things you want me to try out in 1.17. And click on these playlists to learn more cool things about this game. I would like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!